All television and radio stations in the United States will now cease their regular programming.
As it's written in the 14th verse of Daniel chapter 11, in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south, which at this time is the United States, who in late 2017 named Jerusalem as the capital of Kenite-occupied Israel, which the United Nations aggressively rejected, leading to the United States cutting the UN's budget for 2018 as part of the continuous weakening of the great horn of the he-goat of Daniel chapter 8, which is the United Nations in my opinion. And once that great horn is broken, so to speak, is when the new world order will emerge, having 7 heads, which as we know from Revelation chapter 17 are 7 mountains, that is to say the 7 continents of the planet Earth. It also has 10 horns, which are 10 fallen angel kings, which as we know from Daniel chapter 7 are part of Daniel's 4th beast, which is exclusively supernatural. They reign 1 hour, so to speak, with Satan, as we also know from Revelation chapter 17. 1 hour meaning the entire 5-month-long hour of temptation, which begins at the woe of the 5th trumpet, possibly because of an external threat with the arrival of Satan and his fallen angel locust army being perceived as an extraterrestrial invasion, forcing the world to set aside their differences and form the so-called New World Order at that time, which is what the fearful sights from heaven could be in reference to in Luke chapter 21 verse 11, which may even be why the Pentagon has just recently announced a new task force to investigate UFO incidents. But regardless of how the 5 months begin, there's no one world system until the supernatural element arrives on earth at the woe of the 5th trumpet. And then after the deadly wound that you can read of in Revelation chapter 13, Satan appears as the Antichrist in Jerusalem at the woe of the 6th trumpet, performing miracles as it's written in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, which are the great signs written of in Luke 21 verse 11. Signs and lying wonders, that is to say, killing a third spiritually at that time when the Nakar and the Zur in the Hebrew become the many-membered body of the Antichrist. Babylon the Great, which is the city of confusion, as opposed to the heavenly Jerusalem that you can read of in Hebrews chapter 12, whose citizens are those who are in Christ Jesus, part of God's family tree, in other words, as opposed to Satan's family tree. And at this time, the Nakar, who are the natural branches of Satan's family tree, are the same robbers of thy people written of in Daniel chapter 11 verse 14. The he-goat that's made up of the 2 warring factions of globalists, that is to say the unipolar globalists and the multipolar globalists, and they'll exalt themselves to establish the vision to bring about one worldism, in other words, but they shall fall, which means they shall fail. It won't happen until Satan and his angels get cast from heaven to earth, regardless of whatever peace deals are signed, because again, many will stand up against the king of the south, the United States, who is at this time attempting to bring about peace between Kenite-occupied Israel and the countries that surround it. But there is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked. And not only are the children of the wicked one part of the current U.S. administration trying to bring peace to the area that surrounds Jerusalem, but as it's written in Daniel 8:25, when Satan finally does appear as the false Christ and he appears in Jerusalem, it's by peace so called that he'll destroy many, spiritually speaking. Christians being the only ones alive spiritually to begin with, so it's no mystery who the third are written of in Revelation chapters 8 and 9. Those who were citizens of the heavenly Jerusalem written of in Hebrews chapter 12, but then at 666 they worship Satan instead of Christ, which is what Antichrist means, and become citizens of Babylon, which means confusion, receiving the mark of the beast in their foreheads or in their right hand, with child and giving suck, in other words, which means impregnated with Satan's deception in their minds and spreading that deception one to another. In their right hand, meaning the work they'll do after buying into the deception, they'll sell it, meaning again they'll spread the deception one to another, the same meaning as giving suck. No longer a virgin bride, in other words, but the whore of Babylon. That's why Christ said in Luke chapter 23, the days are coming in the which they shall say, blessed are the barren and the wombs that never bear and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say to the mountains at the 7th trumpet, upon realizing they've been deceived, when the true Christ returns, fall fall on us, and to the hills cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, Christ being the tree of life, what shall be done in the dry? The dead tree being the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So again, before the 5-month-long hour of temptation can begin, the great horn of the he-goat, which is the United Nations, must first be broken. Nation shall rise against nation, meaning the goat pig nation rising against itself, breaking the United Nations, which is also the one who sends a raiser of taxes in Daniel chapter 11 verse 20. And once the great horn is broken, so to speak, is when the new world order comes into being, which is made up of the 4 beasts of Daniel chapter 7. Then the deadly wound happens, and then Satan appears in Jerusalem as the instead of Christ at 666. And then 70 evenings later, which are what the 70 years in captivity to Babylon were a type of, the true Christ returns at the 7th trumpet as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And as the true Christ says in the last verse of Mark chapter 13, what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch.
From this chamber of representative government, let all the world know and none misunderstand that I rededicate this government to the unswerving support of the United Nations.
The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion.
Not attempt to adjust the picture. Wait on controlling transmission.
The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority.
There is nothing wrong with your television set.